What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel a combo tutorial and test hand video for my invoked generator deck list that at time of recording I uploaded about a month ago on the channel now. It was a really cool profile featuring some of the new support that came from Duelist Nexus, using some of the new runic cards and Revolution Synchron as well, just some added spice to the list. I will leave a link in the description down below for the deck profile. Like I said, it was uploaded about in the beginning of last month. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to watch it before watching the combos and test hands video. I initially set out to do a combos and test hands for this deck list, but it kind of fell to the wayside because I wanted to do some other content first. But I'm bringing this back to the channel today because I'm going to be bringing you guys a live duel video pretty soon, hopefully sometime this week. And my good friend who helps me record those videos is actually going to be piloting this exact generator invoked deck list. I've been teaching him how to pilot it and pilot it correctly, so I'm going to be having him play the deck, and I'm going to be bringing you guys live duels with generator invoked going up against some of the more recent profiles that I've brought to the channel, like Dynamorphia, Cyber Dragon, and so forth. So if you guys are excited for that, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're working our way to 1,500 subs. We just passed the 1,100 mark, and I need your help to get there. So if you're watching this and you're not subbed, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of my uploads. And like I said, for those new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, I highly encourage you to subscribe. We do a lot of interesting stuff here that most other Yu-Gi tubers don't necessarily focus on. So like I said, this is more of the off-the-wall type stuff, and I think a lot of my viewers definitely do enjoy it. But with the intro out of the way, we are diving headfirst into the combos and test hands for Generator Invoked. We're going to start off with simple one-card combos, because this deck actually has quite a few of them, and it makes it very fun to pilot. So, with everything out of the way, we're diving headfirst into the combos. We're going to start with a copy of Magical Meltdown, and a copy of World Legacy Monstrosity. So, the reason why we play Invoked in this list is because Generator is a deck that doesn't necessarily need its normal summon, and I wanted to play a very strong package, supplementary engine in this deck that would help, you know, improve the ceiling and consistency of Generator. Now you're probably wondering, well, how does Invoke do that? That's what I'm here to explain. So, this is going to be a simple 2-card combo in this instance. It could be a 1-card combo, leading you just down an Invoke line, because all you need is Meltdown for that. But in order to bridge the gap between Generators and Meltdown, Monstrosity plays a pivotal role in that. So, we're going to start off by activating Magical Meltdown. Upon activation, that lets us search for a copy of Alistair the Invoker to hand. Then we will normal summon the Alistair the Invoker, using its effect upon normal summon to add an invocation from the deck to our hand. Grab Invocation. Now we're going to link off our Alistair to go ahead and make ourselves a link 1. In this case, that's going to be Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden. We need her specifically because she is a light monster. We will then activate Invocation, allowing us to fuse by banishing the material. So we banish our Alistair from grave and the Artemis we control, and that's going to allow us to make a copy of Invoked Mechaba, since Alistair is obviously Alistair, and we just needed a light monster to go into him. So now we have Invoked Mechaba on field, who just so happens to be an Omni Negate, mind you. We're going to use the Graveyard effect of Invocation, taking our banished Alistair, adding it back to our hand, and then Invocation will get shuffled back into our deck from the graveyard. Very insane effect. Just allows you to constantly have resources for the following turn. And now that we have Mechaba on field, for those of you who didn't know, Mechaba happens to be a level 9 monster. Now what's insane about this is the fact that in tandem with World Legacy Monstrosity, we're able to activate Monstrosity, targeting our level 9 Mechaba, and this allows us to special summon 2 more level 9 monsters from our deck with a different type and attribute than the targeted monster. Now, this doesn't even lose to Ash because we do have an Alistair in hand and Mechaba's on field. So if they do try to Ash this, we can just chain the Mechaba, sending Alistair for cost, thus negating and banishing the Ash, which is very powerful. But off of the Monstrosity, we're going to summon a Vala, Cedar, Generator of Bosses, and we could either go for something like Nidhogg, It doesn't really matter what we go into because they're just going to be used as Xyz material anyway. For the purposes of this combo, let's just summon out a Frody from the deck, because they have to be different types and attributes than the initial target, as well as different names. Then we can overlay using our 2 level 9s to go ahead and make a copy of our Leviathan Generator Boss of Shadows. So with just that simple 2-card line, that gave us an Omni Negate, follow-up for next turn, as well as Leviathan's ability to take any 2 cards in the opponent's field and or graveyard and attach them to a Jormungandr that will be summoning off of Leviathan's effect. So it's non-target, non-destruction removal. So we pretty much have, like, she can slurp up 2 cards, and we have an Omni and follow-up off of just a 2-card line, which I think is very, very powerful. And that's why I like playing Invoked with generators, because there is a lot of indirect synergy. It definitely helps the fact that Mechaba is a level 9 monster, obviously. Now, feeding back into the Monstrosity, because Monstrosity is a very important card. The reason why we're playing a small runic package in this deck, and which consists of 2 freezing curses and 2 flashing fire. That's literally all we play, so it's not like a full-blown runic deck. We just play the runic card. These are the runic spells we main deck, and we use it because flashing fire is basically a pop for any special summon monster on a quick play spell, which is really, really strong. Also, it can banish the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck for further disruption, which is really nice. And then Freezing Curses is effectively like a Forbidden Chalice. It just targets an effect monster and negate its effects, while also banishing 3 cards off the top of their deck for just added disruption as well. The only stipulation is that you skip your next battle phase when you use these cards, but this is effectively a pop, and this is a negate. Now, why do we use them? Well, obviously, they're all like instant fusions, because aside from them having their own unique effects, they have a secondary effects that allow you to special summon a runic fusion monster from your extra deck to your extra monster zone, which is obviously very powerful. Now, every single runic spell shares that same secondary effect, which makes them like instant fusions in a way. So, because they all do the same thing, the secondary effect wise, you can either interchange either one. It doesn't matter. They both effectively achieve the same goal. So let's just assume you have either Flashing Fire or Freezing Curses. In this case, we have Flashing Fire. You can activate Flashing Fire, allowing you to special summon a runic monster from the extra deck to your extra monster zone. And now we have the newly acquired, not newly acquired, but new to the game out of Duels Nexus, the Sleipnir the Runic Main. This is a brand new runic fusion monster that came out in Dune, and it's a level 9 monster, no less. Which effectively makes this similar to what we do with the Invocation line. So we can go Flashing Fire to summon Sleipnir, and now that we have a level 9 on board, we could go Monstrosity, targeting the Sleipnir, to basically do the same thing we did as if Sleipnir was Mechaba. And again, it's still on a 2-card line, because all you needed was these 2 cards to achieve that, and it's just an easy way for you to like turbo out your level 9s out of your deck. You know, so you can kind of advance your plays, which is obviously really, really cool. So we can summon like Gila, for example. It's just got to be monsters that have a different type and attribute than what you targeted. And then you can still achieve the same thing, overlaying the 2 targets to then go into your copy of Leviathan. And it's pretty much similar. The only thing you don't get is the follow-up like you do with the Invoke package, because the Invoke package allows you to retain an Alistair in your hand to use next turn. The Runic package doesn't get you that follow-up, but it still gets you a free level 9 body, plus the ability to make the Leviathan, and all you needed was just still the same 2-card line. So while the Invoked version is better, in theory, because it gives you more advantage, this version also is not terrible for the exact same investment in terms of card economy. So I just want to point that out to you guys, for those of you wondering why we're playing the Runic package. Because it's flexible. They're either E-Tullies for a free level 9 body, or you can use them with their own individual effects as additional disruption, because they are quick plays, so you are able to use them like, you know, trap cards of sorts during the opponent's turn, which is really, really cool. And Sleipnir himself isn't a bad card either. during your main phase or the opponent's battle phase, quick effect, he can target a face-up monster the opponent controls, and you banish both that monster and this card until the end phase, which is really crazy. So this is something that like is gonna just annoy your opponent. They're gonna have to address that, because the moment they try to commit to their battle phase, Sleipnir is just gonna try and take itself out and another one of their cards, which is really insane. And then it comes back, and then on our main phase, we can do the same thing again. So Sleipnir is still a card that is obviously very problematic for the opponent. Not to mention, if they add a card from the deck to their hand, Sleipnir allows us to special summon a runic token, which just so happens to be the same type, attribute, and stats that the generator tokens have, which is really, really interesting. So the Sleipnir is obviously a really strong card, but it's nice that you have multiple ways to get into your generators using Monstrosity in either the runic package or Monstrosity plus the invoke package, which gives this deck a lot of flexibility and way more consistency, obviously, which is important. Now we're going to look at how Lopter is effectively a one-card line of sorts, and it's very, very strong. So let's talk about how that all comes together. So if you have a single Lopter, Lopter is a one-card combo, which is obviously really crazy. So you normal summon the Lopter, use Lopter's effect to tribute itself, allowing you to special summon a generator from your deck, of which we're usually going to be summoning a Mardell. It depends on how your hand looks, but since this is just a one-card combo, we're just going to be going for the Mardell in this case. If I could find her. There she is. So we'll special summon the Mardell, activate Mardell's effect to search for a generator card, of which, of course, we are going to be grabbing the field spell, boss stage. And then you can activate your boss stage, and now the moment your opponent draws for turn, you can trigger the boss stage, allowing you to special summon a generator from your deck, of which we will be grabbing something like a Har, which is obviously really cool. And then you're going to be able to produce all of your generator tokens off of the field spell effect, and now you effectively have a free Omni, and you only did that with the one card line. Now what's interesting though is you can pivot. Let's say you don't want to go for boss stage, or you have access to it because you either hard opened it or you have access to the trap card that we play, the generator boss fight. You can actually deviate. Instead of summoning Mardell, you can still normal summon the Lopter, then go Lopter effect, summon out a copy of Vala, and then Vala effect will revive the Lopter, and then you'll go ahead and pass turn. Now this doesn't look like much, but what happens is then on the opponent's turn, because Lopter's a quick effect, you can go Lopter, tribute himself, and then you can still get to the Har that way as well, which is obviously really, really cool. And it still gets you to the Omni, which is obviously very strong. So Lopter is a very crazy card and generator, very, very powerful, especially in tandem with the Vala, who came out of Hypernova. Just insane legacy support for generators, in my opinion. So Lopter is obviously really, really cracked. There's a ton of stuff you can do. I haven't even really scratched the surface with what Lopter alone can achieve, which is obviously really, really crazy. A few other things that you can also do. Let's talk about this package, the Synchron package, of which in this particular list we're just playing 2 Rev Synchrons and a single copy of Tuning. So we're effectively playing a playset of Rev Synchrons. Tuning's really cool in this deck because there's a lot of stuff that you can mill that actually doesn't mind being in the graveyard, which is obviously really cool because you have cards like Vala, who can just recover generators from grave extremely easily. It makes, like, if you mill a generator off of Tuning or Revolution Synchron's effect, it's not even that bad because Vala can just bring it right back and give you free value. But Rev Synchron is just, it helps this deck get a much higher ceiling, especially through cards like Alistair. Actually, the real combo would be to have Meltdown. So here, if you have Tuning and Meltdown, or this also still works the same if you have the Rev Synchron. So Rev Synchron and Tuning are interchangeable, obviously. But let's just say you have Rev Synchron and Meltdown, or you have Rev Synchron and Terraforming also works well as well. This 2-card line is absolutely cracked, and I'll explain how. So you can go Meltdown, activate, go ahead and grab your Alistair the Invoker. Then you can normal summon Alistair using its effect searching for invocation. And then instead of linking the Alistair off like we did in the first combo, we have Ref Synchron or Invocation in hand. We're going to actually Synchro Summon using the Alistair on board and the Ref Synchron from the hand via its own effects to go ahead and make ourselves a copy of Ancient Fairy Dragon. Then what we can do is we can go Ancient Fairy effect, popping the Meltdown, and then searching a field spell from deck to hand with a different name and also gaining 1,000 life points in the process. So this bridges into our generator line now. Then we can go, Then we can go Rev Synchron's Graveyard effect. Because we control a Synchro monster, we can mill the top card of our deck to grave. Special summon the Rev Synchron as a level 1 monster. You can only do this once per duel. And then you could Synchro, because the Rev Synchron is now a level 1. You could Synchro into a copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, which is obviously really insane. Now you have a free monster negate. Now what you can do is you can go Invocation, banishing your Ancient Fairy from graveyard and your Alistair the Invoker, because Ancient Fairy is a light monster. And now you can go ahead and make your invoked Mechaba. So now you have a monster negate and an Omni negate. You can then utilize the graveyard effect of Invocation, adding the Alistair to hand from the banish zone and shuffling Invocation back into the deck. And then now you can go ahead and activate your boss stage. And then the moment that the opponent draws for their turn, you can trigger the boss stage, summoning a Lopter from your deck. Now the reason why you summon Lopter is because Lopter gives you much more advantage for the following turn. And I'll explain how, as opposed to just summoning Har directly. Because what happens is all the tokens that are produced by the field spell get destroyed anyway. So then you'd just be left with the Har by itself. As opposed to summoning Lopter. I'll explain why summoning Lopter is so cracked. But you can go Lopter effect, tributing one of the tokens. And then you can get yourself a Har. Plus you'd have Lopter's benefit of all generators gain 1,000. So it makes your tokens beefier and a Har much beefier to clear. And you basically have an Omni, and a monster negate with follow-up off of a simple 2-card line, which is cracked. And then what happens is during the end phase, the tokens die, but you still have a Lopter, which means you can then go Lopter on the crackback on your turn to summon something like a Vala, you know, and get back into the game that way, which you can go like Lopter, tribute himself, summon Vala, then Vala effect will recover the Lopter. Then now you have two 9s to then overlay into something and then pretty much push for game from there. So that's a couple of the lines that you could do with this particular deck and why I find it so fun to play and why I'm excited to bring it to you guys as a live duel on the channel. But now that we've gone over some combos, let's go over some test hands. So we're gonna do a quick pile shuffle here. Like I said, if you guys want to see more of this deck, let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to leave the link to the description for the deck profile. If you haven't seen the profile, I highly encourage you watch it. Like I said, this deck is something that I put together last month, and it's a lot of fun. It didn't gain the attention that I necessarily thought it would, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the deck is still really fun to pilot, and also very, very strong. So we got our pile shuffle there, done pretty quickly. Like I said, I do everything on the channel pretty much off the cuff and with minimal editing. That way you guys know that I'm not pulling any strings to like give myself really insane draws and whatnot. So now we're gonna cut and we are gonna play this like we're going first. So we have Rev Synchron, Lopter, Mardell, Generator Boss Fight, and a Vala. So this hand is really, really cool in my opinion. So we can do a couple of things with this, honestly. We already have access to Mardell, so we basically have a really good starter and a really good extender. So let's see what we can get into here. Let's go ahead and normal summon out our Lopter. And we're not going to use Lopter's effect here. What we're actually going to do is we're just going to straight up Synchro Summon using the Rev Synchron from our hand. we can just go ahead and go into an Ancient Fairy Dragon off the rip, assuming we're going first. Now, unfortunately, we won't be using Ancient Fairy's effect, but that's fine because we can still use Revolution Synchron's effect. Out of the graveyard, since we control a Synchro, we can mill the top card of our deck and then revive the Synchron back as a level 1 tuner, allowing us to then go into our copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So now we have a monster negate at least. And now we can go Vala effect in hand, sending our Mardell to the graveyard, special summoning Vala. Then we can go Vala effect to bring back the Lopter in this case. We could bring back the Mardell, but usually all we use Mardell for is to search for the field spell, but we can get to the field spell with the boss fight anyway. So we'll revive the Lopter in this particular instance, and then we will... well, do we want to do that? I guess we have a couple of options. You know what? Here. Let's go down this road. Let's revive the Mardell. We'll use Mardell's effect to get a search. We'll grab the boss stage. The reason why we do this instead of going for Lopter is because this line allows us to make a rank 9 right now. We'll activate the boss stage, and then we can then overlay our 2 level 9s to make a rank 9 of our choosing, which was most likely Leviathan because Leviathan's just insane. And then we can set our copy of Boss Fight and pass turn. And now what we have is the Crystal Wing for a monster negate. We have Leviathan with 2 mats under it for the ability to steal 2 cards and attach them to the Jormungandr that we summon off the Leviathan's effect. And then the moment that they draw for turn, the boss stage triggers, allowing us to summon from our deck a generator, of which we'll probably end up grabbing another Lopter. Or we could grab a Vala as well. There's a couple of ways we can go about this. So let's do that. We'll summon Vala. And then we'll trigger the boss stage as Chainlink 1, Vala's Chainlink 2. Changes all backwards, so Vala will summon out a Lopter, and then the field spell will then produce us generator tokens. And then what we can do is we can go Lopter effect, tributing one of the tokens. This also helps us play around cards like evenly, because if they evenly us, we'd have to keep everything... we'd have to send everything and keep the tokens, because tokens can't be banished face down. So by doing it this way, this mitigates us having so many tokens on our field. And then we can summon out a Har off of the Lopter effect. And this would be during the opponent's draw phase. Well, during the draw phase, we summon the Vala, that summons Lopter, and then in the main phase, we can go Lopter into Har, giving us an Omni negate. So now we can end up just negating the evenly anyway, even if they had it. We still have the monster negate and then the Slurp 2, and we have plenty of follow-up, plus the ability to go into another copy of Boss Stage, which is really cracked because the first effect of Boss Stage is soft once per turn. So like if we draw phase, we trigger the Boss Stage and they have Ash. Obviously Crystal Wing can answer the Ash, but let's say we don't want to burn their Crystal Wing on that. If they do Ash Boss Stage, we can Chainlink 3, Boss Fight, sending this to grave, and then activating another boss stage from deck. And then at resolution, they would draw a card off of the trap. Then the Ash triggers, negating this copy of boss stage, but then because they added a card, and this is a new copy of the field spell, it triggers the first effect again, allowing us to attempt to summon another generator from deck. So that's how you also play around Ash using the trap, for those of you who didn't know that. And then you don't have to burn the Crystal Wing, just to stop an Ash. You can save the Crystal Wing for something a bit more impactful. Which is obviously really strong. So let's do one more test hand. I don't want to make this video too long, but again, I was mainly doing this because I am going to be showcasing this deck in a live duel. I've been helping my buddy teach him how to play this deck so he can do it justice when we record our live duel video. And honestly, I have a soft spot for this deck. It's really fun to play, and it's got a very insane ceiling. That first hand was an example of us going first. Let's do this next one as an example of us going second, just to see. Now going second, this deck actually puts in some decent work. However, obviously, it's better suited going first a lot of the time, but it doesn't mean that it's terrible going second. It really depends on what you're playing into. Obviously, if we are going second, and we know that we are, post game one, we could decide appropriately for that and have a better chance of going second. But let's just say that we're at locals, we sit across the table, we roll the die and lose the die roll. Opponent chooses to go first, which means we're going second. Let's see, game one, what this deck can produce to try and break a board. So, pile shuffled, we're going to offer the cut, and we have an Ash, Magical Meltdown, Alistair the Invoker, Rev Synchron, and Trias Hierarchia. So again, keep in mind we're going second, so opponent's going first. Let's just assume that we Ash them during their turn. So now we're going to draw for turn, and we drew into a copy of Tuning. This is absolutely insane. So, going second. I couldn't ask for anything better, honestly. This is really, really nuts. So, I guess we could try fishing for a hand trap using Tuning to add a Synchron Tuner from deck to hand. So we'll add our Rev Synchron. And we'll cut, and then we got to mill the top card of our deck. With the resolution of Tuning, we milled a Mardell. Okay. That's not bad, because if we get access to Vala, we can revive that. Let's just go for the Meltdown. Let's see, if we can fish out an Ash. If the Tuning didn't fetch an Ash, which, again, it didn't matter, because we hard opened a Rev Synchron anyway. We also hard opened to Alistair. So let's see, if they Ash the Meltdown, then it almost accomplishes nothing. And if they don't Ash it, well, now we have two Alistairs in hand, which is really nice for their secondary effect for the stat boost, which is crazy. So we have Alistair. Now we can normal summon Alistair, activate effect to search for the invocation. Now, if this gets stopped, we also don't care. Let's say they imperm that or something. Even if we don't get to invocation, it's not the end of the world, because we have so much gas with the Rev Synchron line. It's absolutely insane. But let's say it does resolve, it just puts them in obviously a worse scenario. So get the invocation. Now, again, we're going second. So we're gonna synchro using our Rev Synchron and Alistair. And because we're going second, trying to break the board, we're just gonna synchro immediately into a Black Rose and trigger Black Rose effect on summon. Now, Black Rose is gonna attempt to nuke the entire board. This is obviously probably gonna proc some type of response from the opponent. I find it very hard to believe that the opponent's just going to let us nuke the field unless they're playing like Unchained and they want their stuff destroyed, which if that's the case, you'd adjust your approach accordingly. But this is most likely going to fetch some kind of negate, whether they negate and destroy it or they just negate it on field and we keep the body. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Like, even if they negate and destroy it, we still have access into our invocation because we have an Alistair and a fire. Or a light. We have a light in the graveyard and a fire, so we can still go for like Mechaba or go for Purgatrio and break the board that way as well, which is obviously insane. But let's just say that we get to keep the body. Then what we can do is we can go Rev Synchron's effect out of the graveyard, sending the top card of our deck to grave, making Rev Synchron a level 1. Obviously, so if they imperm the Black Rose and we keep the body, this line's possible. We milled a Vala, which is absolutely nuts. It sucks because we don't have a generator card in hand, at least not yet. But then we can go Black Rose and Rev Synchron, who's now a level 1, to then make a Crystal Wing, which is obviously very strong. And then we can go Invocation, sending our, the Ash and our Alistair, to then go into a Purgatrio line, and then try to just OTK the opponent, depending on how many cards they have on board. Then we go Invocation's Graveyard effect, adding the Alistair to hand, shuffling Invocation into the deck. And then we'd have a Purgatrio and a Crystal Wing with double Alistair, just to guarantee that we can push for game. Now, if we didn't want to go for Black Rose, like I said, let's say they were playing Unchained, we can kind of rewind things a bit here. And let's back this up just a little bit. If we didn't want to go for the Black Rose line, again, there's a lot of flexibility with this hand. We could have just went Alistair and Rev Synchron to then make Ancient Fairy Dragon, which is obviously really good, and then that bridges us into our generator line, which is really nice, because then we'd basically just do the same thing, summon the Rev Synchron. Well, actually, before we do that, we'd go Ancient Fairy Dragon effect, popping the Meltdown, and then searching us another field spell, of which, in this case, it'll be the boss stage, and then we can get into our generator line that way, obviously, because now we get to the field spell, bring the Rev Synchron back, synchro them off for Crystal Wing, and then we'd still have our invocation to then have Crystal Wing here, plus we'd have our boss stage online, and then we could still make the Purgatrio, obviously, and to try and push for game that way. And if we didn't game them, then we'd have the boss stage for the follow-up. So the moment they drew for their turn 3, we'd trigger it and then continue playing. So that's going to wrap up our combos and test hands with my version of Generator Invoked. Like I said, it's a very fun deck list, and I can't wait to bring it to you guys, showcasing it to you in a live duel. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, like the video down below, and stay tuned for more amazing content coming your way. Once I get these live duels out of the way, I will be focusing on post Age of Overlord content, so you don't want to miss out on that because I have some spicy stuff to bring to you guys. So with that being said, this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Peace.